Night, Eastern Baghdad. On the drone feed, a glowing rectangle of a concrete courtyard, a narrow street, a black door, and the brief flash of a breaching charge. 17 seconds later, the building is declared clear. 11 insurgents inside, 9 are dead. 2 are zip-tied and dragged outside before the dust even settles. American officers watching the live feed from the Joint Special Operations Headquarters in Balad cannot process what they have just seen. To them, it does not look like a tactical assault. It looks like a glitch in time. Too fast, too clean, too precise. Behind this single episode lies the scale of a much larger catastrophe. The year is 2005. Iraq is bleeding out into a sectarian civil war. Al-Qaeda in Iraq is executing dozens of vehicle-borne bomb attacks every month. In Baghdad, tortured corpses are dumped on the streets every single night. The United States has a massive troop presence, satellites, drones, signals intelligence, and budgets that defy conventional military logic. Yet all of this fails to deliver the one thing that matters: speed. The speed required to catch the enemy before they vanish. Into this crisis steps a small British force of fewer than 60 operators. Within the American military bureaucracy, a warning has already been circulated. The British contingent is too small, too dependent on coalition aviation, too underfunded, and too cautious for a city this violent. The Pentagon assessment is logical, highly professional, and perfectly argued on paper. That is exactly why it will be so humiliating when it is proven completely wrong. The central question of the story is established here. How did a tiny British task force, stripped of the overwhelming advantages of the American war machine, manage to achieve what vastly larger forces could not? This is not a story about a single lucky raid. It is a story about how an entire insurgent network in a city of millions simply disappeared, and how that disappearance started with 17 seconds. The camera pulls back from the raid to reveal Baghdad as a single decaying organism. The districts of Dora, Adamiyah, Sadr City, and the industrial zones east of the Tigris all operate by their own rules, but one law governs them all: the fastest survive. The American system is exceptional at identifying large targets, disrupting mid-level operations, and eliminating anyone careless enough to leave a permanent electronic footprint. But the enemy is adapting. Cell structures are fracturing. Safe houses are used for a single night. Couriers replace mobile phones. Bomb assembly and deployment are separated by districts and hours. Between the moment a target is identified and the moment a strike team arrives, hours pass. In the Baghdad of 2005, hours equal failure. A sharp contrast emerges. The Americans possess mass, technology, persistent overhead surveillance, and staggering firepower. The insurgents possess the city, the fear of the population, and the ability to dissolve into the background. This dynamic creates a deadlock. Massive coalition cordons look impressive, but usually end in empty rooms, burned burner phones, and the lingering scent of men who left the night before. The American machine is executing its doctrine flawlessly, but it is moving too slowly, not out of incompetence, but because it is fighting an environment that instantly punishes delay. London makes a decision. The British will not sit on the sidelines of a collapsing country. They deploy Task Force Black, a strike group fusing the SAS, support elements from the SBS, signals intelligence, analysts, and human intelligence officers. This is not just an elite military unit. It is a compact, self-contained hunting system designed to find, fix, finish, and immediately exploit intelligence to generate the next target. While the American military machine tries to control the city from the top down, the British prepare to enter it at a completely different speed and by a completely different set of rules. Not through geographic dominance, but through the relentless pursuit of specific individuals. not through mass, but through repeatable precision, not through air superiority, but through the domination of tempo.
The story shifts back in time to explain the root of this future operational dominance. It is not found in technology, weaponry, or command structures, but in the operators themselves. The narrative moves to the break-on beacons, the unforgiving Welsh mountains where SAS selection breaks the vast majority of candidates before they are ever taught a single tactical skill. The focus here is on method, not romance. Solo marches over brutal terrain, navigation with zero margin for error, crushing physical loads that strip away confidence, then strength, and finally all external support. The attrition rate is fundamental. The system is not looking for the strongest athletes. It is looking for the man who keeps moving when his body and his mind have already agreed to stop. After endurance comes the continuation training, where the survivor is forged into an operator capable of autonomous action in any environment. Demolitions, trauma medicine, encrypted communications, covert surveillance. But the absolute core of their identity is close quarters battle. The lethal precision of a room clearance is not born in the heat of a mission. It is manufactured through thousands upon thousands of repetitions in the kill house, firing live ammunition at target arrays until conscious decision-making is bypassed entirely. The hands execute the lethal program before the brain has even formulated the words to describe the threat. A distinct philosophical divide separates the British from the Americans. The American Special Operations model is largely built around the assumption of systemic supremacy, air support, technological overmatch, and seamless communication. The British model is built around the assumption of catastrophic failure. It assumes that technology will break, support will not arrive, and the only thing standing between the operator and death is the three other men in the room, their institutional memory, and their refusal to lose momentum. This specific philosophy is perfectly calibrated for Baghdad, where every minute lost turns a target into a ghost. The 17-second room clearance is no longer a mystery. The viewer understands it is not a trick, a stroke of luck, or an anomaly. It is the distilled product of decades of ruthless selection and accumulated operational experience in Northern Ireland, the Balkans, and Sierra Leone. 17 seconds is not an isolated event. It is a physical manifestation of an entire institutional culture. Task Force Black sets up inside the massive American base at Balad, but their war is fought in the streets of the capital. The distances are huge, helicopter assets are scarce, the roads are heavily seeded with improvised explosive devices, and the target neighborhoods are controlled by hostile militias. Rather than waiting for optimal conditions, they adapt. When helicopters are unavailable, they drive. When armored military vehicles draw too much gunfire, they use stripped-down rovers and unmarked civilian cars. While massive coalition cordons simply warn the target to flee, the British operate in small, ghost-like elements that appear and vanish before the neighborhood even wakes up. The engine of their success is a hybrid intelligence model. British officers and analysts merge human intelligence from local shopkeepers, drivers, disillusioned insurgents, and tribal elders with American and British signals intelligence. The critical difference is that the British process the fragments faster. They do not wait for a perfect intelligence picture. They gather just enough to justify a strike, knowing the strike itself will provide the rest of the puzzle. The methodology is put to the test in the Dora district. There are no block-by-block sweeps, no mass detentions. They target only the structural nodes, bomb makers, logistics coordinators, financiers, safe house managers. Every raid follows a brutal, compressed cycle. Infiltrate, breach, capture or kill, extract phones and pocket litter, analyze it on the spot, and immediately hit the next address. The night stops being a sanctuary for the insurgents. It becomes the time they are hunted by professionals. Tempo itself becomes their primary weapon. One raid triggers the next. One captured mobile phone illuminates 3 new addresses. One detained facilitator exposes a connection that overhead drones could never see. The insurgents do not yet comprehend the scale of what is happening to them, but they realize they are facing a new apex predator, not a loud, heavy army, but a silent, carnivorous system of men who kick in doors, extract the intelligence, and return to strike again before dawn. The spring of 2007 marks the climax of the campaign. A massive al-Qaeda network is operating in central Baghdad, responsible for the city's most devastating car bombs. It is a complex structure of over 200 personnel, bomb builders, couriers, safe house keepers, and commanders. Task Force Black does not aim for the leadership immediately. They start at the edges. They target the easily found men whose pockets hold the keys to the center. First to fall are the drivers, the lookouts, the low-level fixers, then the safe house dispatchers and the route managers. The intelligence gathers momentum like an avalanche. Every door kicked in shortens the distance to the core. The association matrix grows incredibly dense. British analysts stop reacting to the enemy and begin predicting their movements. Safe houses are compromised based on the rhythm of past rotations. Telephones are linked in rapid succession. Districts that were blind spots a month ago are now completely mapped. The physical reality of this tempo is staggering. Operators are running 5, 6, sometimes 7 raids in a single night. The same men are sprinting upstairs, holding rifles at the high ready, blowing hinges and sorting through bloody pockets and shattered laptops under red light night after night. During one entry, a heavy improvised explosive device detonates right behind the breach point. The lead operator takes the blast, suffering severe concussions and lacerations. The remaining 3 step over the debris, clear the house, and take the primary target alive. His phone leads to the next tier. The network does not just break apart, it disintegrates entirely. Over 90 days, the organization that held central Baghdad hostage ceases to exist as a functional entity. Some are killed fighting, dozens are captured, the rest flee the city. The frequency of spectacular attacks drops dramatically. American generals, accustomed to measuring progress by tonnage, troop numbers, and budget spreadsheets, look at the aftermath in awe. A tiny British element has collapsed a mass casualty network that thousands of conventional troops could not touch. They achieved it not with one decisive battle, but with 90 days of relentless, suffocating pressure in the dark. The victory is absolute, but it is not free. The tempo that broke al-Qaeda in Iraq begins to break the men of Task Force Black. The sheer volume of raids, the crushing weight of body armor, the concussive shock of breaching charges, the sleep deprivation, and the psychological trauma inevitably catch up with them. Men are killed. Others continue to hit targets while carrying spinal and joint injuries that would have resulted in immediate medical discharge in peacetime. Men selected specifically for their inability to quit refuse to stop, even when their bodies are failing them. A profound shift occurs within the coalition command. The same American establishment that once drafted formal warnings about the British being too small and too restricted is forced to issue a quiet retraction. Task Force Black delivers a force-to-effect ratio that has almost no modern equal. The revelation is not just statistical, it is philosophical. It proves that military capability cannot be measured solely by aviation hours, troop counts, or technology budgets. True capability is measured by the severity of the selection process, the speed of decision-making, the absolute trust within a 4-man team, and the willingness to execute at the extreme edge of human endurance, night after night. The story returns to its core premise. The British did not win the Iraq War alone, and they were not magicians. They did not stop the wider chaos triggered by the invasion.
But in one highly specific, absolutely critical domain, they proved a principle that modern defense bureaucracies constantly forget. In the unforgiving geometry of urban counterterrorism, an obsessively trained, highly selected human being will always outperform a machine that costs 100 times more. Not because technology is useless, but because technology is blind without the operator who can turn data into violent action before the enemy has time to disappear. The final image contains no satellites, no drones, and no glowing command centers. Just a dark street, 4 men stacked outside a door, a brief, blinding flash of a breaching charge, a few seconds of maximum calculated violence, a captured mobile phone dropped into a plastic evidence bag, a new grid reference radioed back to the analysts, and another unmarked car driving deeper into the Baghdad night.